Hey guys, what's up? Unrested back again. Today I'm jumping into something where I need to be looking at a lot of the story as I go through it because this is a bit of a complicated one. I don't know if you've heard about Carlos Ghosn. And sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. I'm not the best at pronouncing names. Ex-Nissan boss in Japan. And he was arrested. Now, the reason he was arrested is kind of crazy. It's a minor thing that normally CEOs in Japan, I can tell you big CEOs of big companies, they're not usually arrested for this. And it's supposedly the only reason he was arrested was that he just didn't report how much his total salary was, which, guys, this kind of corruption happens nonstop in Japan, and big CEOs of Mitsubishi, Sony, stuff like that, they don't get arrested for this. So this is where it kind of got wild because, first of all, he was already arrested for something that was kind of like, really? You're going to put him in jail for that? Usually you're slapped with a fine. Maybe the tax office comes after you too, but you usually don't end up having the police show up to your house or at work and literally put you in handcuffs and put you in a car like they did with Ghosn here. So let's go into it. If you don't know this story, it's kind of a wild one, and I need to actually read through the steps that this guy went through. I've heard the story a bunch of times, but I know it's all kind of mixed up in my head. I'm sure you guys have been there before when you've heard a complicated and long story. So that's why we're going through this. So at 10:30 on a December night, this is in 2019, he decided to make his escape. And from what I understand, it was a private jet that he had hired, and the way that he got through security at the airport was by putting himself into an instrument case. So at first I was like, what kind of instrument is big enough to fit a human? I was like, is this like an upright bass or something, like a bass violin? I looked at it later, and it's more so like those kind of big stage boxes that a roadie would carry with a band. But still, this guy's 64 years old, and he's scrunching up his body to fit inside of one of these for a couple hours as they load up the plane. Now, mind you, once he got on the plane, I'm sure they probably opened it up and let him get out and, relax a bit. But he had his pilot fly him as far as he could take him. So it has some stuff that he's recalling here. And these are actual quotes from Ghosn himself. It says, "The plane was scheduled to take off at 11 p.m., recalls Carlos. And the 30 minutes while waiting inside the plane, waiting for it to take off, was probably the longest wait I've ever had in my life." He said the thrill was that I'd finally be able to tell my story when I got out. So he's arrested over allegations by Nissan that he understated his annual salary and misused company funds, which he denies. Now, we don't know if that's totally true or not. But again, dude, I can tell you this happens all the time in Japan. Big CEOs misusing funds, not stating everything they're doing, possibly having, insider trading and things like this. They don't get arrested. They do get hit with some fines and stuff like that, but that usually they're not hit with as much as Ghosn was. Ghosn was the chairman of the Japanese car maker Nissan. He was also the chairman of France's Renault. I'm hoping I'm saying that I'm pronouncing that right. And the boss of a three-way alliance between both car makers and Mitsubishi as well. His cost-cutting at Nissan, initially controversial, was ultimately seen to have saved the car maker because Nissan is they're not doing good. And what's kind of wild is they blamed him for not insider trading, for not reporting his full income and for messing with company funds. Well, after he's left, Nissan's just gotten worse and worse. So, I mean, I don't think CEOs are angels sent to earth to make everything better. I'm not trying to go with that. He probably was doing some shady stuff like moving things around and stuff like that. But the fact that the company is doing even worse now that he's gone kind of shows, maybe there was some other sketchy stuff going on that wasn't connected to him. And they were just going to use him as a scapegoat, right? I mean, they've had to shut down a bunch of factories. A bunch of people have lost their jobs at Nissan. It's not doing well. And even Ghosn has, he said that he's recently done an interview, and that's why all the full information is out. And he said, you know, people have asked, will you ever go back to Japan to face the charges? Of course he says no. And he says, what's your final statement to Japan? It's like, how good do you think you might still be doing if you had let me stay in that position there and not tried to falsely arrest me? I bet you wouldn't have to close all those factories and stuff like that. And of course, there's like no response from Nissan, no response from the Japanese investigators, the police, or anybody who was part of this. They're just kind of like, well, anyway, you should come back to Japan and get arrested. I mean, that's like their only response. So he became highly respected after this and a recognized figure. And he insists that, this is a quote from him, he insists he was collateral damage in a fight back from Nissan against the increasing influence of Renault. So he's saying like the French company was starting to take over more and more. And because they were a foreign part of Nissan, to attack Renault, they went after him, which, I mean, that's, Renault's French. He's not French. Ghosn's not French. So I'm kind of confused on this, and maybe somebody can explain that down in the comments. I mean, I have seen people who are Gaijin get falsely arrested and accused of stuff simply because they want to make it look like Japan can save face, but the foreigner loses face. Now, that's not always the situation, but I have definitely seen Gaijin be used as the scapegoat. And if you don't know what I'm saying when I say Gaijin, I just mean foreigner. So here we go. Stocks frozen and trauma. That's the next part of his interview, what they talk about. He said, describing the moment of his arrest at Tokyo airport 3 years ago, Mr. Ghosn says, it's like you're being hit with a bus or something, really very traumatic. The only memory I have of this moment is shock, frozen and trauma. Mr. Ghosn was taken to the Tokyo Detention Center where he was given prison clothes and confined to a cell. All of a sudden, I had to learn to live without the watch, without my computer, without my telephone, and without the news or even a pen. For more than a year, Ghosn spent long periods in custody or was held under house arrest in Tokyo after being bailed out. So I don't see the full information listed here, but I do know the fact that, number one, not only was he taken to that detention center, he was hit with 2 different charges. Number one, well, actually, at first they made him one charge, that he didn't report his full income and that he had shifted around money at Nissan. And what they did was they split up the charge into 2 separate charges. And the reason they did that is really kind of sketchy, because in Japan, which has a 99% conviction rate, they do this thing where once they arrest you, they can hold you for 21 days without any reason at all, even if you're not guilty or anything. 21 days, and they will interrogate you for those 21 days straight. And they will make it very harsh, very uncomfortable until you finally confess. And they took his 2 different things that he did, split them up instead of making them one conviction so that they could do this 2 times in a row, so 42 days. And the breaking point for him was, I think there was a breaking period between the 2 charges, like he was finally able to be released on bail, because I don't know exactly what the international situation was, but internationally this was getting news and people were like, isn't that kind of inhumane that he doesn't even have bail? I mean, he didn't murder anybody, right? So they gave him bail, and in between that time, and they were going to bring him back in for another 21 days to do this, he started to set up his escape plan. Okay, it was during a period of house arrest when Mr. Ghosn was told he would not be allowed to have any contact with his wife, and that he decided to start figuring out a way out. The plan was, I could not show my face, so I have to be hidden somewhere, he said, and the only way I could be hidden was to be in a box or be in a luggage box so nobody could see me, nobody could recognize me, and the plan could possibly work. He said the idea of using a large box that would normally contain musical instruments was the most logical one, particularly around the time when there were a lot of concerts in Japan. So he even scheduled it in a good time. That's pretty interesting. But how would someone once so famous, now infamous in Japan, be able to get from his home in the capital of Tokyo to the airport? So here's what he does. He decided to just lay low on the day that he was going to make his escape. He wore normal, everyday, like kind of grungy clothes and stuff. He said, I made sure to buy like the cheapest jeans and the cheapest t-shirt and wear a mask, a viral mask. So he's kind of gearing himself up for this. He's planning out how he's going to fold himself up into this box. So here's the whole rundown of how it went. The moment. From Tokyo, Mr. Ghosn traveled by bullet train to Osaka, where he took a private jet that was waiting for him at a local airport to depart. First, the box, which was waiting for Mr. Ghosn, was in a nearby hotel. When you get in the box, you don't think about the past. You just think about the future. You just think about the moment, he said. You're not afraid. You don't have any emotion except the huge concentration on this is your chance. You can't miss it. If you miss it, you're going to pay with your life and your life as a hostage in Japan. And why he's saying that is because Ghosn's 64 when this is all going down. And they predicted the legal trouble that he was in would take anywhere from 10 to 15 years to play out as far as him going in and out of jail, dealing with lawyers and court cases. And he said, I don't want to die in Japan. So, I mean, I can kind of see his point there. Mr. Ghosn was transported from the hotel to the airport by two men who were posing as musicians. In all, Mr. Ghosn reckons he was in the box for around an hour and a half, though it felt like it was a year and a half. I can only imagine. There's like a diagram showing like what he looked like closed up in this thing, and it was like insane. The private jet took off on time, and Mr. Ghosn, now free from his confines, flew through the night, swapped planes in Turkey before landing in Beirut. The next morning, Lebanon does not have an extradition treaty with Japan, so Mr. Ghosn was allowed to remain there. However, Americans Michael Taylor and his son Peter have since been handed over by the U.S. to Japan and are now facing 3 years in prison for helping Ghosn to escape. So these are the two guys who helped him escape, who pretended to be musicians, and they're now in jail for 3 years. So I wonder how their situation is going to play out. I mean, they definitely did break the law. They helped the fugitive escape, whether they believe he's, not guilty. And that's a rough situation to put yourself in. What of the people who have been left behind in Japan? Ghosn said, I've been told that at the end of the trial, there will probably be, the end of this year will be the end of the trial. Sorry, I'm getting all backed up. And then God knows what's going to be the result of this trial. For as I said, it is bogus. I feel sorry for all the people who are victims of the hostage-like justice system in Japan. So now, apparently he does talks and everything about this, and does like damage control for like teaching classes on how to do damage control for your company. He's doing pretty well back in Lebanon, and it's kind of crazy to see how this whole thing went down. I don't know. I'd love to hear what you guys' feelings are on this. It's a case I followed for a bit. It's still a little bit confusing to me because I don't completely understand. So there's one more thing that's going to go on. Apparently he has one more trial in France dealing with his connection to Renault, which is the car maker connected to Nissan. And according to sources, if he, this is like legal news reporting sources like Reuters and the Associated Press and stuff like that. Apparently, if he gets through that case and is found to be like totally innocent, it's going to make Japan look like really bad. Like it's going to really make Japan look like, wow, you did try to pretty much hold an innocent man hostage. So it's going to be interesting to see how that case goes down. But again, I want to hear your thoughts on this. Have I ever seen this happen before? Yes, I've definitely seen this kind of thing happen before in Japan. I actually had a black friend who was arrested after his Japanese girlfriend beat him like mercilessly, poor guy. And he like ran to a police office to get away from her, and he ended up getting arrested and dealing with this 21 days of, being kind of held like a hostage, asked all these questions and everything. And finally, the prosecutors, the police and everybody, they couldn't find anything to hold him on. She had like no bruising on her or anything like that. He had like all kinds of marks across his face and stuff like that. Luckily, he had taken pictures on his own phone. And so when he was able to hire his own lawyer, he was able to get him that information. And, they ended up looking really foolish putting this guy, 21 days, questioned and asked about why he was treating his girlfriend so badly when really it was the totally reversed situation going on, not operation. Anyway, How about you guys? Have you heard anything like this happen before? In general, it's easy to just stay out of trouble in Japan. Just keep your nose clean. Don't screw around. Don't get into fights. Don't get drunk in public and do something stupid. In my friend's case, stay out of insane relationships. But if you do end up getting into that situation, it can be really scary. There was another one I heard another time where I believe this was out in the countryside near Nagoya, and a man was just riding his bike and had left his gaijin card at home. And you're always supposed to carry your gaijin card with you. And the police pulled him over and they're like, "Where's your card at? Show it to us so we can, check your resident status." He didn't have it. And they took him to jail and held him for those 21 days. And, at the end they had to finally let him out. But it was just, he wrote to the newspaper and everything and, talked about how it was torture. Like, this dude was probably like 6'2", and he said the only thing he got every day was like one bowl of rice and one water. And he said, like, at 6'2", like, I was starving to death, like, every day. Like, I was super weak by the time I was finally released, which is insane. I mean, like, that's cruel and unusual punishment. We're talking like third world country, levels of pressure to put yourself in jail. Just admit everything you've done and go to jail. Not cool. Anyway, I'm going to end it here. I've trailed off on 2 extra stories too long, and I hope you guys are having a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you again real soon. Unrested out.